Welcome everyone back to my HTML series, and this will probably be my last one until we start some CSS, because I think I've said pretty much everything that you need to know. But this will probably be episode 4, so 1 to 4, that's all you need. It will probably take you an hour to go through and you'll pretty much be a pro. So anyways, in this episode we're going to do some iframes, some buttons, and lastly some forms, and then you'll be literally good to go to make whatever you want your basic HTML website. But anyways, let's start with iframes. Here we can basically go like this. So if we go in the body, so we're gonna go like this. We're gonna make an iframe tag, and you don't need a closing tag for iframes. So as you can probably see on the right, we can see that we have like a hollow box here. That's basically what the iframe is. And inside here we can say we can have a source. So we're going to put a source attribute, and inside here we can say we want to put you can have put a website, you can put another HTML document. So we can start off with Google, I guess. And last time I checked, it didn't work for me because for some reason I got this thing in the bottom right today, but it should work for you guys. I think it's a new update that VS Code have done and they're trying to fix it. So if we go https /www.google.com, this should basically just put Google in this pixel here. And this is basically used for, like, say, ads, stuff like that. Just like if you want anything in here onto your website, just get content from another source. And pages like Google or stuff like you tend not to be able to do it. So that's why this basically doesn't work, because Google doesn't have any iframes, because iframes are very prone to hacking. So I'm pretty sure Bing does work. Of course it's not going to work on my one because for some reason it's buggy. Inside here also we can also make our actual box here bigger or smaller. So if we want to have it, let's say 500, actually that's too big, we'll do like 400. And we can also have a height of, cool, as you can see, this whole thing will have content from another source, so we can put Google or an advertisement here. That's what you basically see in pop-up websites. So as you can see that we got our link here, our hyperlink here. Say for example, instead of wanting a hyperlink here, we want to link to one of our other HTML websites. So what we can do is we can basically, instead of having this, we can make another file. So in our command prompt, or you can just go here, you can say code, and we can say, if we want to make an advert, we can do add.html. So now what we can do is, if you want to just make a normal blank HTML file, you can just press exclamation mark and then tab, and voila, we get this. So what we can do is we can make space, and we can say in our header tag, purchase this new cool gadget. Cool. And then you can just say in your body tag, you can put a style attribute, and we can say we want the background color to be, let's say, purple. Cool. Of course you can do RGB or hex, anything works. Now that we can move on to our original one, which is index, we can reference our add HTML. So we can do add HTML equal sign. We got purchase this new cool gadget. So that is basically what you can do with these iframes, and it's tend not to be used, but it's a cool tool to use. Furthermore, what we can also do is we can add a bit of CSS into our borders, and what we can say is we can say border border colon, and let's say 0. And what you can see here is that we have no outline, whereas before, if I get rid of this, you see the outline here. It's quite hard to see, but there's a border outline here. So moving on, we can talk a bit about buttons, because everyone's realistically used a button on the website, so why not create it? So make yourself a button tag, and you need a closing one as well. And let's say we want to have in our button tag, click for a cookie. Cool, as you can see we got a button. Nothing happens, but it looks like a button. If you would like to add, say, a hyperlink to your button, so every time you click it, it goes to somewhere, we can add a pair of A tags. So delete and close the A tags. And inside the A tags, we would want to add a href attribute. And inside here, let's say we want HTTPS. Also, if you would want to, you can also disable a button. So say if you ever want to disable a button, you can't actually click it, but if you want to disable it for any reason, say for example they haven't clicked terms and conditions yet, they can't press click for the cookie until they accept the conditions. So you can always look at stuff like that. So we can get rid of that, and we can move on and we can talk about our style. So we can say style, because we always like it to be looking nice. We can add a background color, and of course this can be anything. So this can be, let's give an example of, we can name the actual color. Okay, that doesn't even make a big of a difference, but if you have, say, blue, you could do the color blue, you can do the hexadecimal blue, or you can do RGB. Remember, you can do this, so it can be 030303, that gives you black. Or you can have RGB 02550, and as you can see, that gives us green. So if we move on a bit, we can also add multiple things. To do this, you need to have a semicolon at the end, and say we want color to our writing. So what we can do here is we can then add aquamarine. Okay, that is shocking. So let's add, what look goes with green? Blue. Now we got a green and a blue cookie, so that's pretty nice. Furthermore, we can also add a border. So with our border, we can also add another color. What border do we want? Let's say we want yellow. So we're gonna add the yellow. Also, what you guys can do is you guys can have a border, and you can have radius. So radius, and say I want 5 pixels. What you can see, guys, now is that it's a 5 pixel border. It's nice and curved and it's beautiful. Alongside our beautiful button, let's get rid of our A tags. We can also include a bit of JavaScript. I won't touch too much on it because I will make a series on it, but it will allow you guys to see what you can actually do with a button. Of course, it could be very simple, but for now, just trust me on this. So what you guys can do first is you can add a attribute called onClick, and with this you can put any function you want. We're gonna say clicked. Beautiful. So right now nothing happens because we don't know what the function is. We just know that we want to put this function somewhere. Moving on, we can add a p tag, and inside the p tag, well, inside the first one, id, and let's say test. Cool, because we're testing right now. And let's say we want morning. After you click morning, you can also make some more space, and this is where it gets a bit more complicated, but we can add a script tag, and inside our script tag we can mention our function. So we're going to do function, and we're going to do clicked with some curly braces. So for this to actually do something, so when clicked it does something else, we're going to add this basic attribute with our function. So what we'd like to do is we're going to want to get the element ID. So elements by ID, and inside here we want to talk about test here. So test dot inner HTML. I don't expect you guys to remember this, but this is what you need, and when you guys do your own website you can just search up online and it'll come up. It's not something you're supposed to remember, it's just syntax. And then instead of morning we'll say good night. So that's pretty nice, pretty cool, and then make sure to end with a semicolon at the end. So now as you guys can see, we have morning here and I haven't clicked on the button, but now if I say click for a cookie, it turns to good night. Lastly, we're going to talk about forms. What these basically are is, I mean, you'll get to see, it's like whenever you do any survey or anything, you're going to have all these type of ways to fill out your form. So with your password it will be blurred out, or if they ask for your first name, you did you just put a text block and you put your first name, stuff like that, and I'll teach you guys how to do that. So firstly, we're going to put a form tag, as you do, and inside your form tag we're going to want to put input, because we're going to ask the user for an input. So inside here we're going to say the type of our input will be text, so, and we're going to close it. So as you guys can see, we got our text. Furthermore, we can give our form a label. So our label will consist of 2 label tags, and inside here we can just name whatever we want. So say for example we want the user to input their first name, so what they're going to do is they're going to input their first name. Beautiful. So now we're going to also add another attribute, and inside our label we're going to add something called a for attribute. And what this basically does is when you go over the actual letter and you click on it, so if I wanted to click on this, instead of it just not doing anything, it will just automatically prompt me to this box. So let me show you. To actually do this though, you also need to add something that links the two together. So here we're going to have ID and we're going to have f_name. And this looks like nothing, but now when I click fname, it already prompts it. So that's beautiful. Again, prompts it. Furthermore, what we can do with these forms is we can add another attribute, and inside this attribute you can have, let's say, fname. We'll do fname again. And what this basically is you can see it as a variable where you just get whatever the user types in, this is what it will be stored in, kind of. I'll show you guys later on. And last attribute, we got placeholder. And what this basically does is, if you see in other websites where, let me just show you, Ben. So as you guys can see here is that this placeholder, it doesn't actually write anything, and it's just there. You normally tend to see this with Gmails and stuff like that, and it's just a way to like show you what type of characters they want inside a text box. So as you guys can see, as soon as I type something, it gets rid of it. So it's pretty cool. So furthermore, instead of just having first name, let's also have, let's say, a reset button. So what we can do here is we can say input, and inside our input we're going to want to have type, and we're going to want to have reset. And as you guys can see this, we have a reset button. So say if I want to do this and I press reset, it resets the actual button. But as you guys can see, I don't really like how it's laid out. So what we're going to use is, as said in my other tutorials, we're going to use a div tag, and let's put the closing tag over here. Let's add one more, but let's make a bit of space, and bang, bang. And then also, just for niceness, we're going to add a break tag, so it's nicely spaced out. Furthermore, we can add another break tag, and we can add another div tag. And what we can put here is another input, and instead of just having reset, we can also have a submit button. So with our submit, you just do type as the attribute, and we're going to have submit. So now that we got this down, what we can also do is basically when we submit, nothing actually happens. So let's change that. So we already have that. If I put Casian, we could put reset. That's cool. If I put Casian, as you guys can see, nothing happens. It just resets again. So we can easily change this. What we're going to do is we're going to go inside our form tag, and we're going to put action as an attribute, and inside our speech marks, we're going to put action underscore page dot php. So with this language, what you can do is you can have method is equal to a certain something. There's two types of things. There's get and post. Let's start off with get. So what get does is it basically, when you submit something, it will place wherever you submitted into the URL. As you guys may know, this is not secure and it's not used that much. But it's definitely useful for like search boxes, etc. But it's less common than the one that I'm going to show you in a second. So let me show you an example. So say I type in Casian, and if I press submit, as you guys can see, nothing happens. Okay, cool. But if you guys can see here, we said fname is equal to Casian. That's basically what it is. That's what it does. It's pretty cool. Next, if we want post, what this basically does is you won't see anything because we don't really have a server, but instead of putting y type in up here, as you can see, nothing happens. But what this will basically do is it will just submit the data into a server, which is a lot more secure and it's a lot more used. So this is the one that you're probably going to use more. Furthermore, what we can add here is let's make this a bit smaller so we can see everything. And what we can see here is that we can also add another attribute, and this is the required attribute. It's kind of self-explanatory. And I submit, it says please fill out this field. As you guys can see, it's basically just a prompt to tell everyone that there actually needs to be something here. So let's add another box, I say. So as you guys can see, I pasted it up here so it's not all the way down here. But instead of having just first name, why not add a password as well? So let's say we want a password, and let's say we want to change this to password. As you guys can see, it will probably be the same as our first name, but with just a little bit of a tweak, I guess. So inside here, password, and we can also give the ID as password as well. And furthermore, we can also give the name a password as well. And basically, the only one that really matters that this is password is this one. These ones, it can be this could be strawberry if anyone cares. It's just this one that matters because this is the one that will basically change my writing to normal to these things so no one else can see. And then we can get rid of the placeholder. And what we can add here, we can add two more different types of attributes. We can add a max length and we can also add a required. We already have required, so we don't have to do that one, but we can add a max length. So if we want to say max length, and let's say our max length is 10, so basically our password cannot reach more than 10. As you can see, it does not let me. I'm holding my key down, it does not work. So that's really good for if someone wants to be bored and just spam until the end. Furthermore, we can have another form, and this one's a bit different. This one's for emails. So let's say we want email. That's what, if we click on it, it's gonna take us to the input of the email, and this for links to ID. So we're gonna have email, and this one is also, funny fact, email. So we can also name this email, and we can also name this email. So we can get rid of this max length, and we can also say placeholder again, and we can say Casian at gmail.com. And as you can see, it says Casian at gmail.com as a placeholder, but if I start typing, whoops, whatever, let's do Casian, whatever password, and this will not let me because this does not have an at. As you guys can see, it says it needs to require an at. So when I do an at, beautiful, it's not going to find anything because there's no such thing as that, but that's what it is. Furthermore, we can do this again. Say we want a date calendar, so we can say dates, dates that happen, not fate, date. And inside here, instead of having anything, we need the special type of date. And as you guys can see, it's changed to the calendar format. Let's change our ID to date as well, and our name as date. This is all beautiful. And now I say, for example, I click on dates, it will click on this, boom, boom, 111. Now let's say we're in a shop and we're in an e-commerce shop. Let's say we want to buy something and we want a certain quantity of that. What we can do here is we can add a amount that we want, so let's say quantity, and we'll also change this to quantity. Our type here that we want is number, because that's what the type is, that's what the syntax is. Here we can also put quantity, and here we can also put quantity. And now I say if I want to put 25, I can increase it, scale it, hold it down, wherever I want. Of course, I don't think we want minus 99999 quantity, because no shop has that, it's not even possible. So what we guys can do is we can, after name, we can add min, and let's say our minimum that we want is 0, and let's say we want our max to be equal to 50. And also we can say the starting value as 1. Basically what this is it can't go below 0. This is just a range. So this is the minimum, this is the maximum, and this is the starting value. So as you can see, 1. So now we can also go on to do some radio tags. And let's start off with the label because it's just easier to do this way. Let's say we want the person to be a Mr. Close the label, and underneath here we attach it with an input of a type of radio. And as you can see, these are the ones that you can click. Cool. Of course, we want to link the label and the input together, whatever we want to do to them. So we're going to have our equal, and we're going to give it title. Next, we can do this one more time. And what we can see here is that let's change this to Mrs. and we're going to have a type of radio and a name of title. This name of title just links the two together, or else what would happen is if we had this not happening, we can add both. But if we have them both together, you can only choose between one or the other. That's basically what name does overall. It's really powerful and it's really, really nice to use. Furthermore, you can also add our usual tags. So let's have Mr. Let's have our ID is equal to Mr. And then also have our value as Mr. Nice. We can do this again. So inside here we're going to have a full attribute as Miss. We can also have this as Miss, and then we can also have the value as Miss. And this, of course, just if I want to click here, I get to click on the certain specific thing instead of having to click exactly on the circle. So after adding your set of div tags, what we can do now is we can add another label, and we can add our for attribute, and you can add, say, payment, because what we're basically going to do now is have a drop down menu, and in our example here is we're going to ask what type of payment do you want to do. So if you close these and ask, say, for payment, and then you want your actual select, so we're going to have our, instead of input, it will be select. This is what separates the input to this one, because this one you actually drop down. So what we're going to have here is we're going to have our ID, so that connects to what we had above, and we're going to have our name, so that it stores wherever we want, and we're going to close this, and inside our select we're going to add wherever we want to have in our drop down menu. So we're going to add an option tag, and we're going to do value is equal to, let's say, Visa, and we're going to close that, and we're going to close this, and inside here we're going to actually name it. So we're going to want MasterCard, and let's say if we want this one more time, we can do this one. Instead of this one, we can have Amex, and our value is going to be Amex. And as you guys can see, when I drop down, I can choose between the two. Lastly, what I want to show you guys is the checkboxes. So if you have another label, this is the last label, I promise, guys, and let's say we want like plus subscribe, and we're going to close this. We're going to say like plus sub, and we're going to close the label, and then we're going to actually do the actual input. So we're going to do our input tag again. We'll do a type of checkbox, and with our checkbox we're going to give an ID of like and subscribe, and then with our name attribute we're going to do it again, and then like plus subscribe. And if you guys haven't got the hint, make sure you like and subscribe so that you can get the best HTML videos up, so that you guys can learn the best and the nicest. So as you guys can see, now I can check and uncheck whatever this is. So thank you guys for watching. I hope I helped you guys a lot during this HTML series, and make sure to look out for the CSS series, because that will be just as good and just as amazing, maybe even better. But if you guys watch till the end, comments Toji in the comments, and that makes me know that you watched till the end and that you're amazing. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.